Let's continue Be'ez Hashem, the sugya that we started a couple of days ago, and that is a beautiful sugya of Mezuza. It's mamash a gavaldige sugya, you should know. Going through the notes, trying to figure out what not to say was even harder, because there are so many shilas that are so exciting. When you learn Mezuza, there's shilas of, let's say for example, we have what the Gemara calls a kippah, which is a archway. What happens if you have an archway? Where exactly do you place the mezuzah if you have like a rounded archway, like the windows we have over there, right? You have many doors that are like those windows. Where would you place the mezuzah? How do you work out the height of where the mezuzah needs to be? Where does it need to be placed on a regular door situation? What happens, for example, if you have rooms that are tiny, do they require mezuzahs? It's just incredible the amount of shilas that come up with Hilchos Mezuza. But like I said in the beginning, we are not, unfortunately, at this moment, Be'ez Hashem, B'li Neid, I would love to do this another time. And I think we should, because it's so exciting. And we can bring pictures and videos of different people doing different things that are terribly wrong. And you walk around Yerushalayim, okay, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. It's unbelievable how people have no idea. If somebody called me up, Bach and Yeshiva, by the way, calls me up, I think it was a couple of years ago. We must have mentioned Hilchos Mezuza, he was busy with it, whatever. He calls me up, he was in a mall here in Yerushalayim, not far. There's chips over there also. And he was in this mall, and he said, this is amazing. He said, there's a glass sliding door in the store, and they put the mezuzah on the glass door, so when you walk in, there you are, and then it keeps on, it slides open, so you have to try and chap the mezuzah. Like, what heter is that? Like, what is that all about? There's so many shilas of mezuzah, it's shmak and exciting, but we are trying to limit it, just for today, to try and get to the shilas that are negay to businesses, to offices, and to workplaces, because after all, that's the series that we're busy with, that's what we're osik in right now. And that is the sugya of course, business in halacha. So we're trying to figure out the shilas that are negeya in a business world. Talking about legabe hilchos mezuzah. So let's begin. We started with a hagdama on Sunday. We started with a shtickle hagdama of exactly, the godless of mezuzah, the reward of mezuzah, the schar of mezuzah. It's a beautiful, beautiful mitzvah. It's an incredible mitzvah. In fact, everyone here is familiar with the Gemara in Ksubas Daf Nun Amud Aleph, where the Gemara in Ksubas Daf Nun Amud Aleph tells us that a person has to spend up to a fifth of his, of his wealth, whatever it may be, for a mitzvah. The Chinuch actually writes, when Minchas Chinuch writes, that when it comes to the mitzvah of mezuzah, because it's a constant mitzvah that a person is mekayim every moment of the day, zuk the Minchas Chinuch, it could be in that case he has to spend even more than the minimum, because it's a constant mitzvah. It's not a one-time mitzvah, it's a constant mitzvah that goes on. Now, let's move on. Let's talk about the shaila, about what we're discussing over here. The first thing a person has to know, it's a chayvus sadar, which means the chiyuv of mezuzah is on a house. The chiyuv of mezuzah is on a house that you are in, that you live in. That is an important, it comes from the psukim, the Gemara Darshans, it comes from the psukim. Beisecha is a house, it has to come from a house. So for example, a person goes camping and he puts up a tent, obviously that's not going to be chayiv in a mezuzah, right? A house would be. Now, the Gemara in Yuma tells us, Daf Yud Aleph Omid Beis, says the Gemara, because we darshan from the word bias, so just like a bias is miyuchad, it's specially for living in, so therefore anything that is lived in would be required to have a mezuzah. So any room of your house that you go in, that you use, would be considered to be part of the chiyuv of what needs a mezuzah, which is why, of course, the front door, of course, the bedrooms, and of course, the baby rooms, and of course, the dining room, and the kitchen, and whatever it is. Now, again, you have to know if it requires a mezuzah lamaisa with a bracha or without a bracha, because there are enough geminas, of course, and you have to know what chiyuv. You have to know which way round to put the mezuzah. Do you put it on the right going in, the right coming out? These are major nafkaminas depending on the direction that people are going, what's mostly used. Again, these are major shilas that I wish we had time right now to go into and give you the klolim of how to work that out, but we don't have the time for that. But it's an important thing to recognize and know that each shilah is different about what requires a mezuzah and what does not require mezuzah. For example, if you have in your house a little storage room, right? For example, the olam knows over here where we keep all the plastic chad pami, the disposable stuff. It's where the lift elevator is meant to be. So it's a small little room, right? Small little room. And you put over there, we put a couple of shelves, plates, cups, whatever it may be, right? It's a tiny room there, you can barely walk inside. Does that require a mezuzah? Right? If it's a small little room, does it require a mezuzah? Right? Does it require mezuzah or not? But there is a minimum amount, exactly. The shayla, does it need a bracha or not? So the Pesach Tshuva brings a shita called the Chamudi Daniel. Chamudi Daniel says, it's a big chiddush, that if it serves the purpose of what I want, then yes, it requires mezuzah, even if it's less than the minimum amount, which is already complicated to figure out what it is, because it's machlokes rishonim exactly how you work it out. But yeah, it would mean that it would require mezuzah pashas without a bracha. That's the Chamudi Daniel that the Pesachei Tshuva brings in Yeridei Simon Reish Pei Vav. Look it up. Now, moving on, because again, we're trying to get to our sugya over here. So every single room in your house, of course, needs a mezuzah. That's a davar poshet ad moed. One of the shilas that we mentioned in the beginning, what about partnerships? What about partnerships? Someone called me recently, he's renting an office together with another yid. Another yid, we're talking about partnerships now, two yid and two Jews. Does it require a mezuzah or not? That's the kasha. And the answer over here is, says the Levush talks about this case, Mufurish, says the Levush, because it says Beisecha in the Pasuk in Krishma, which of course we learn, right, about Mezuzah Sugyug over there, and Leman Yirbu Yumechem, in order to lengthen your life, which we explained on Sunday means that the school of Mezuzah not only, says the Torah, lengthens your life, but also your children's life. Therefore, since you have partners that are Yidden, they both are living, they're using that house, they're both using it, they're living there, or they're using it for storage, which we'll get to, and they want to lengthen their lives. So now my nafkamina that it belongs to two partners, then avadu it needs to have a mezuzah, right? Who has to pay for the mezuzah? This is, by the way, a big shaila when you're renting an apartment, or if you're renting an office space from a yid as well. Who's the one that has to pay for the mezuzah? When you're renting a dira, do I say my baldira has to pay for the mezuzah because I'm renting him a dira? I'm renting a dira from him. Just like he provides me with a bed, and he provides me with a cupboard, and he provides me with a sink in the kitchen, so he should provide me with the mezuzah. Or maybe no. Maybe the mezuzah is on the one that's renting it. Right, these are all major shilas. Again, I'm just simply giving you the shilas that are nageya. So when it comes to Jewish partnerships, lemaisa you are chayiv and a mezuzah. By the way, very nageya here in Eretz Yisrael, where you have an apartment where everyone is sharing this apartment building, and the question is the staircase, for example. What din does the staircase have? Does it need to have a mezuzah? And if yes, who has to pay for the mezuzah? So pashtus, we're just saying now that a yid has to pay, and therefore they split it up. All shukvim in the inyan of the staircase over there. What happens if you have a partnership with a goy? What happens if you're owning an office with, renting an office, owning an office, whatever it is, or a warehouse, a storage room, whatever it may be, with a goy? Does that Pesach, does that doorway require a mezuzah, or does it not require mezuzah? So here we have a major machlokes rishonim if it is chayiv and a mezuzah or not. Shitas harashma and chulin kuflam and vov paskins that avada yochayiv. Why? It says beisecha. So since the Yid owns a chelik in Beisecha, he owns a chelik in the doors of the Rashba, avada yechayiv and a mezuzah. There's no shaila whatsoever. He goes in there. The chelik of the Yid requires shmira. Mezuzah is a shmira. Zug the Rashba. That's the reason. Avada you're going to be chayiv. Zug the Madcha and the Eshkol. They say avada you potter. Why you potter? You look in the Shach and Yeridei Simon Reish Pei Vav, Sikot and Vav. The Shach talks about this ba'arichas, goes through the sugi. It's moiridik. But the Madcha and the Eshkol explain the reason why you're potter is because shtei mefurish leman yirbi yemechem. We don't want to prolong a goy's life, and therefore why are we putting a mezuzah if a goy owns it over there? And especially the Ramah brings in Yeridei Simon Reish Pei Vav Siv Aleph that if you have a joint partnership of a doorway with a yid and a goy, it's going to be potter. The Ramah paskins halacha lemaisa that doorway that you own together with a goy is going to be potter. Reason number one explains the Taz Pshat in the Ramah why he paskins it's potter. Leman yirbi yemechem, and it doesn't apply by a goy. Reason number two, the Orchos Chaim brings, is because there's a sakona. We're worried that the goy is going to steal it. He's going to treat it in a non-respectful manner, in a bezoyandik way, and therefore because of that, that's another reason why they paskin that you're potter. There is another pshat by the Orchos Chaim brings, is that he's worried that the goyim are going to say that the Yidden are doing witchcraft. They have these interesting scrolls on their doorways. They're doing something interesting over there. That's the reason why they're passing a potter. Everybody here knows the famous Maisa, right? Burnham knows the famous Maisa, right? You know the Maisa, right? Well, I'll say it again, just in case. Burnham knows the famous Maisa. I don't even know where I heard this, but years ago, this was a famous Maisa in America. There was a Rav in some, I think it was in Manhattan somewhere, in an apartment building. And the Rav lives in the building over there. He didn't go in, whatever. And he gets a knock on the door, and the rabbi opens up the door, and it's a extremely large colored woman. And she says, Rabbi, I'd like you to perform a procedure. And she said, what procedure would you like me to perform? I would like you to put up a mezuzah on my door. And he says, really? Okay, that's okay, fine, no problem. Kiddush Hashem, he didn't want to say no, whatever it was. Over there, he was warned about sakona, so he goes downstairs and he gets all busy with the gartel. Versteht the gartel, he had to go to mikveh first, whatever. He said, put up the mezuzah, it's a gewaltige Sache, very, very excited, and she hands him the mezuzah. And he says, he looks inside, it's an empty case that's, see-through, and he sees there's nothing inside. And he says to her, oh no, where's the paper inside? Oh, the instructions. No, I threw that out when I bought the thing. I don't need that anymore. I just got the case, right? And she heard it was a shmira for the Jews to have it, so I also want the shmira. So, al kaponim la'alocha la'maisa, many paskin like the Ramah, as they paskin the Heilige Yavitz, the Levush, the Nesivos and Derech Chaim, the Chayei Odom, they're all paskin like the Ramah that a Yid and a Goy, that partnership in the doorway, is going to be potter. However, many poskin go with Shitas HaRashba. At the Beis Yosef paskins like the Rashba. The Yamshel Shloime, the Vilna Gaon, the Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Moshe and Gvis Moshe also paskin like over here the Rashba, which is Be'etzim Shulchan Aruch and Beis Yosef, which means that if I'm not worried about a sakona, then in a chanami. If you're not worried about a sakana, by the way, the Yad HaKetana brings, the Yad HaKetana, by the way, Mordecai Sefer Mezuza, the Yad HaKetana brings what you should do if you're worried about a sakana. And those of you that, if you've seen in Europe, you've seen these places, Lamaisa, that in Europe they were very worried to place a mezuzah on the outside of the door because Goyim will know, number one, that there's Yidden there, and that was sometimes a sakana, and sometimes they can smash it, they can do all sorts of things, and you don't want to do that to a mezuzah. So you sometimes see in Europe what the eitzah from the Yad HaKetana, which was what? Which was to drill a hole into the doorway, place the mezuzah in there, and cover it up with plaster so nobody even sees there's a mezuzah. You can see in certain places the remnants of the plaster. Sometimes they've taken out, you see the hole. By the way, be very careful, Gemara Menachos, if you make it bigger than a tefach, deeper than a tefach in, you're still not yotze mezuzah. But that's for a different shayla of where to place the mezuzah. All those shaylas are where to place it if you've got a doorway that's got no mashkoiv. There's a shaylas that we're not going to go into at this moment of time. The last shayla, again, for our timing over here, is a storehouse, an office. Does that require mezuzah? So I understand my house requires mezuzah, my bedroom, my kitchen, my dining room, that I get. But a storage room, a machsan, an office, I don't live there. And Beis Yachon means it's a house you live in. Here I don't live in it, so therefore maybe I'm not chayiv in a mezuzah in this case. All of this is a shayla in the Gemara in Yuma Daf Yud Aleph, talks about the sugi over there, Tanya Beis Yachon, Beis Cha Miyuchad L'cha, Beis HaTeven, Beis HaBoka, Ve'etziv, Ve'oitzus, V'chulei. The Gemara goes through the whole list of things that are potter from a mezuzah because you do not live there in that case. There's a shaylim, there's shaylim, because there's another brisa that says nishtazoi. How do we teach up the different brises? Of course, that we're not going to go into this moment of time. Most poskim, gedolei poskim, including the Shulchan Aruch, hold that an oitza, a storage room, does require a mezuzah. Shulchan Aruch in the beginning of the 7 Reish Pei Vav and Yeridei pass this way. The Levush, the Yad HaKetana, the Cha'odom, Derech Chaim, the Ben Ish Chai, and many other gedolei poskim as well, also paskim that it does. Some hold it depends on how often you go in there, and that will be the nafkamina. If you go in there often, if it's a storage room that you use all the time, then yeah, Rabbi Zul Orbach Shlita once told me that if you go in there once a year just to go get your Pesach dishes, that's not good enough. If you go in there all the time, you're constantly in there, in and out, whatever it may be, Lashon V'Shach, Yotze V'Nichnas, then Avada would be Mechayim Mezuzah, and therefore so too any office would generally be Mechayiv in a Mezuzah in that case, because again, if it's owned by a Yid for sure, and you use it to store your papers, use it to store your desk, your chairs, all of these things, so therefore you would be chayiv in a mezuzah. Just by the way, because the olim are asking, what was the inyan about the mezuzah case, right? And this is negate to all mezuzahs, like what type of case do we have to get? There's still these beautiful silver cases. What's the difference there? So there's a smak and there's a kolboy that say quite clearly. The Beis Yosef brings it over here in Reish Pei Vav Sif Hey in Yeridei. The smak and the kolboy bring down that if the mezuzah is in a place where there are things going on over there, like an erva being shown, non-tznius things, then you should cover it. Otherwise, toiv, that it should be clear. So is the loshon of the kolboy and the smak in that case. Dafka to see the shin dalad yud as well, very important. Al pi kabbalah, al pi soid, there's a lot to discuss over there. But there's an Indian to have a sitru mezuzah. However, this is negay in a home when you've got kids, for example, that are getting undressed, and therefore they could be megalim themselves in a place that's not sneers, and therefore the mezuzah should be covered with 2 coverings. Hu hadin, by the way, people don't have in Eretz Yisrael where you have a machsan or you have a mamad where the door door sometimes closes and the mezuzah is on the inside of the room. Most times the mezuzah, when you close the door, is on the outside. Over here, sometimes in a mamad, it's actually on the inside because it's a very big mamad. The entrance, the mashkav is very big. You put it inside, you close the door, the mezuzah is on the inside. So you have to know who's sleeping in there, what's going on inside of there, nafkamina. This is a nafkamina in the office as well. Because in the office, if you've got an office with not sneers women walking around with, there's another shaila to that, of course, that we're not going to go into. We spoke a bit about that at a different time. Maybe a different time we'll speak about that. But if you've got that, you have to be very careful that your mezuzah has got two coverings in that case over there. Rabbi said the sugya mezuzah is huge, but Ezra Hashem, I would love to do it, be Ian with the oilam at a different time, but that's negayah to the office, and Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow, brand new sugya.